I'm sure you might already know this, but they are renowned experts in body language and human behavior. And they are the co-founders of Truth Plane, which is their company. And together they have trained numerous groups, including business people and politicians and Fortune 500 company leaders and G8 prime ministers. So let's hear from them directly. Without further ado, let's please welcome Mark Bowden and Tracey Thomson.
Danica, we hope that we're here with you. How are you doing?
We're here. We're all together. I'm doing great. How are you?
We're very good. Lovely to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you. Where do you come from today in the world of Zoom?
Sitting in downtown Toronto.
A thrilling place.
Sort of sunny, sort of cloudy, looking out the window at the same time as looking at you.
Yeah, the leaves are green, still on the trees here in Toronto, but very soon they'll turn to that beautiful red color that you would associate with the Canadian flag and that red maple leaf.
Well, may we all be so lucky to see it, but now I just want to know if you've studied body language on trees and leaves, so we'll have to get to that later. Have you
maybe that's next.
Yeah, maybe that's a book.
How to talk to our plants. I'm sure there's a whole market for that. Well, it's so great to see you both again. Obviously, we had an incredible time working on this video book. It was such a thrill. So we obviously have a lot of guests here today, and some might not be as familiar with your work. So I just love to start hearing a little bit about your background on your career and also on Truth and Lies.
Great. Well, as Danica already said, we run a company together called Truth Plane, where Mark goes out and does keynote speaking, and we train people on how to use their nonverbal communication to stand out, win trust, and gain credibility around themselves and their content every time they communicate. And we came to that. We've been doing that for, gosh, how long now?
Oh, gosh, 17 years, 20 years?
Almost 20 years. Gosh, it's a long time. And before that, we both have backgrounds in performance and training people in movement and in acting. And I originally went to acting school a million years ago in England. And that's how I came into contact with Mark. And then I used to run a startup out of something called the Actors Center, which is in central London. And they were just getting into what they then called corporate training. So I headed that up. Mark was one of the trainers way back in the day. Of course, the most popular, because his work is always very accessible on how to use your body language. And it kind of went from there.
Yeah, so we've spent most of our lives looking at how you can use human behavior, body language, movement to influence and persuade people. And how it is that other human beings make up their minds about you, get a theory about what you might be feeling and intending towards them by watching your behavior. And so we studied that, we've worked with that. And so we have skills to be able to show people exactly what to do to get people to think and feel about them in the way that they want, whether you're running a business, whether you're running a country, whether you're starting a business, whether you're running your family as a leader. What is it you have to do in order to get people to connect with you?
It's a beautiful thing that you do, because there's so little cognition we have about those small tics or about how we might be perceived. And those small changes, I'm sure you've seen people have tremendous growth with just a change in body language or a change in the way they approach things. And so I'm so excited to dive in today to be able to talk to you about this and also to inspire our participants and our viewers here today, because I think we can all really learn from this, and those little tiny key things to change might not be that hard, but they might make all the difference.
Oh, certainly, for sure. What we're always trying to do is give people what are the small things that you can do, usually on a regular basis, and keep on doing, that's going to make the maximum impact on the effect that you have on people.
Yeah, we've always tried to be the most accessible, like to give people the most accessible techniques that you still have to do them, but once everybody can do them, they're very accessible, very easy to understand and to master.
Let's dive in. Let's master some stuff. Let's talk about it. And obviously, we're going to get to see a little bit of the video book, so we can talk along the way also about what this process was like, because it was so fun for us to take your written book, which I highly recommend everyone go out and read as well. There's tons of tips and tricks. We could not even begin to cover everything in the video book, so definitely go out and read it. But let's take a look at the video book, and we're going to start with a clip, which is the main overarching theme, which is the SCAN system. And so the first theme that we're going to be discussing today with this focus on communication and leadership is the SCAN system. And so in this clip, we're going to explain what the system is, and let's take a look.
The SCAN system is a simple 4-step process to understanding the signals that we're seeing from others in any interaction.
It starts with S, suspend judgment.
We judge the world around us, including all the people in it, naturally. We need to stop that judgment for just one moment to open up more possibilities.
C is for context.
Take into account the context in which the body language happened. Body language doesn't happen in a vacuum.
To look at the wider picture, where is this behavior happening? Because again, that can open up for us a whole ream of possibilities.
A is for ask what else.
What else is going on here? And this is where what we might have brought into this interaction would come into play. Where have we come from? What are we bringing into this interaction ourselves?
And finally, N is for new judgment.
You're going to decide on something new. Now, understand this, the new decision can be the old one. That's okay.
By using the SCAN process, we can better assess others' nonverbal cues in real time.
These moments happen really quickly. Now I can remember this system when I'm having an interaction in this short period of time that's going to help me to make more accurate assumptions, to be more accurate about the judgments I'm making in that moment.
I love the SCAN system. It's exactly what you just said. It's simple, it's accessible. And I love how you teach, because you teach it in a repetitive way that allows us to see it in multiple situations and remember how simple it is and how transferable it is. But Mark, Tracey, how did you come up with this system? Where did this start? Look at like even just how we're talking right now. I'm moving my hands, I'm not moving my hands. There's so many elements I'm sure that you had to approach and then deduce down into this. So how did you come up with this?
Yeah, we really wanted, so when we set out to write this book, we wanted to give people a way to be more a critical thinker in the moment. So instead, a lot of people go into situations with ideas of reading body language. It's very tricky to do. As you know, as you're in a live situation, you've got a lot going on, a lot of pressures, and other people you're interacting with, and it's really hard to then sit there and read. Although some people are better at it than others, or you can train to be better at it, but still it's a bit of a 50-50, or maybe what's the 60-40 if you're trained. 60% you get it right, 40% you don't. And so we just really wanted to give people something that would help them be more mindful in the situation, and just to not get victimized in a social situation, in a work situation. They'll be able to keep control of themselves, of their responses. So that's kind of where it came from. Well,
I mean, I think what happened, certainly from my point of view, is the publishers of the book said, hey, will you write a book on body language? Yeah. And we kind of thought, well, I mean, there's so many books out there. How can we really add to this? And body language isn't really a language anyway, so it's an odd thing to kind of talk about. And so originally we said, no, we're not going to write a book, and then had to think about it and went, well, the more important thing for people to know is how to think better about people. And so what we did was create this very simple critical thinking model and put that into a book. So a book on critical thinking disguised as a book on body language. So, you know, as you'll know, if you've seen the video book, is there's all the stuff in there about, look, if they do this, then maybe it means this, or maybe it means that, or you know, all the stuff around business and dating and family that you really want to know about, because those are the tough situations that you deal with. But really what we're trying to get across is how you can think better about people, get slowly more accurate about people, and from that have an easier life.
And I think that what's one of the important things that we write about a lot and we talk about a lot is context, and the introduction of the idea of body language in context, and context in terms of the situations you're going into, but also, and then also asking what else. So like, what are you bringing into a situation? Because there's so many different skews that individuals bring in based on where they've come from and how they've been formed and what communities they're part of, and then what they're going into and what's the environment going to be like. So there's just so much nuance, and we really wanted to be able to address that, as opposed to looking at body language as well, if this then that. Because I mean, while there are great guides out there that talk about, you know, if you see this, it could mean that, or it could mean this, or it could mean that, but the context is everything. So that's you know, just adding to, you know, we could go on for hours about our conversations about thinking about what to put in the book, but I think those are the two things, of just giving people a good guide to help them in different contexts, which is the other reason we went with the whole, you know, anecdotal, you know, story-based or narrative-based beginnings at each paragraph, at each chapter.
Yes, and I mean, it totally inspired the video book, which we have these imagined characters, and we watch this, you know, this heroine kind of take her journey through a couple of days of her life in different situations, and you can just see how it can replicate very easily, but in wildly different scenarios. And, you know, I think what you were saying also about the context, it's like, this is such a gray area. None of this is black and white. And I love that part of the book, because I think it's hard when you're having a difficult interaction with someone to be able to take the time and know what to do, other than let your, you know, you say, you know, your monkey brain take over, I think, in the video book, Mark. And, you know, all of a sudden you're getting defensive or responding. And, you know, yes, the scan system gives you that element of, I know how to approach this. I know exactly what I can do, which is stop judging them, look at the context, ask what else, and then make a new judgment. And I also love that you say the new judgment can be the same. It could be the old one. And it's not this, and that's where the gray comes in, is it's an opportunity for you to take the time that you need to better your relationships. And so I'm just a huge fan of this, huge fan.
Well, I would say, Danica, is what we're trying to do is a truly scientific approach to you understanding people better. Your gut instinct doesn't have a scientific approach. It goes, I know what that is. It's this. And it feels very true, you know, because you've got all this background of stuff you've read on the internet and experiences you've had through your life that have been accurate or inaccurate, but you've made up this body of perceived knowledge that really acts very, very fast. What we're trying to do is be more scientific, which means it is grayer. In science, you start off with an idea of what might be happening, a proposal, a theory about something, and then you go and test your theory, and then you come back with a more true answer in your mind. And that's what we're trying to do. In my mind, there is no art of body language. It's not an art. You know, it can be a true science where you come to it with strong ideas about what you somebody might be thinking, feeling, intending, and then you test that idea really quickly.
And so the testing, so let's talk about this, because we have a lot of people in our community here at Lit that are business leaders, or they work, you know, in companies on teams. And we would love to focus a little bit of this conversation today on how we can help everyone use the scan system in their day-to-day lives. So anything from giving a presentation and noticing that folks might be nodding off, or putting together a pitch deck for a stakeholder, and it may be not, you know, you prep and you think it's going to go over really great, and all of a sudden in the room, like, you know, the scan system gives us a way in, but, you know, you have to make those quick pivots. Do you have any advice for just how to approach this when it comes to communication and leadership, and also working with a team?
Yeah, let me give you a quick idea about this that talks from where I just talked about then. Look, let's imagine Danica, that I'm presenting to you, I'm pitching to you, and you send me some signals, either purposely or accidentally, I don't know, you're doing something, okay, yeah, that makes me feel like she's nodding off, like she's not interested in some way. Now, I don't know whether you're doing that on purpose. I don't know whether it really means that, okay, because I've got to suspend my judgment. My gut instinct is going, Danica's bored. She doesn't like this. She doesn't like me either, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I've got this theory here, okay, that you are nodding off, you're disinterested in it. I'm just going to go straight for testing my theory, which is to go, hey, Danica, just want to check in with you. How are you feeling about what I'm saying at the moment? What are you thinking right now? And so what reply would you give to me?
You know, I'm really glad you asked that. I'm not sure this is exactly what I expected.
Okay, good. Thank you. So what were you expecting? So look how already there, I've used your nonverbal communication and my reaction to that. I've suspended my judgment and I've gone, let's check. Let's check by going, hey, Danica, what's going on at the moment? You give me some verbal feedback and then I decide what to do with that. Now, we've skipped a couple of elements of the scan process there, but notice how I can skip straight from, here's my reaction to you. Can I ask a question to see if my reaction is accurate or not? And notice in that how quickly we get to me being able to solve what might be a big problem.
Now, how often do you find, if you directly approach something like that, that the person on the other side of the table from you tells you the truth? And, you know, this is where the gray area comes in, right? Because I could have just formally been like, no, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And then my body language. And so
you just raised one shoulder on that. And so as a general indicator, I'm going to go one shoulder can suggest, so remember I'm going, one shoulder can suggest that you're not quite sure of your answer. Now, why aren't you sure of your answer? What's the context? What power do I have? Are you doing it to placate me? You know, what's going on here? Two shoulders is kind of, hey, you know, what can you do? What can you do? But it was, you know, it's just the way it is. One shoulder there makes me suggest that I should ask further about this, or just go, hey, Danica may well be not being so honest with me right now. Yep. And maybe I need to look into why. Maybe I have power. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you have to ask. Well, I'm just listening. You're saying maybe you have to ask more questions. Right. And I love the fact that you jumped into the whole testing. I think this is really like doing a Zoom, because we're looking at you on Zoom, and I do a lot of sales calls on Zoom. And I know that we work with a lot of people in sales teams, for example. And this, I know we do a lot of stuff about how to ask questions, how to, I don't want to say be disruptive, but how to stop your presentation and check in with the person, especially if you've just got one or two people and you can see them up close and you can see how they're responding, unless they're just sitting like they're like statues. They're going to breathe, they're going to respond. You're going to be able to pick up a couple of large gestures they make. So for you, it was an obvious large gesture. And so you're going to get a theory of mind around what's the largest gesture? What's the largest signal they're sending me right now? It's that one shoulder, which is whatever, I'm placating, I don't care, I'm not that interested, I'm lying, whatever that shoulder is telling you in the moment. Jumping to test and then just drilling down a little bit more. And I do it on sales calls pretty regularly, because I need to find out what problem we're solving for somebody. You know, if someone wants to buy something from us, buy our services, buy a keynote, whatever, what problem are we solving, and how do we get to that? And how do we get into the meeting and get the meeting successfully underway so that everyone's getting what they want really quickly? So I find it, yeah, I think it's a great technique. We use it, like I literally use it every single time I'm on a call.
I can't imagine unseeing it now, but it's also, I will say, like, it requires you to be really prepared, because if you are going to give a presentation like this and then also have the bravery to step in and go, I'm going to use the scan system, I'm going to stop because I'm so prepared that I can take this time and make sure I can pivot if that's going to be the way that I can close this deal. And so would you say that's like part of it also, especially when it comes to being a business leader?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the, sorry, and I'm just going to jump in quickly, but I think being a leader, you are prepared, you know your stuff, you know your message, you know what you need to get across. And I think that you can absolutely, you have to be aware of what your audience, whether it's 1 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or whatever it is, you have to have some awareness of how your audience is responding, of who your audience is, of what they might be after. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, here's what I would say is I will sacrifice content for connection every time. Okay. Look, when you go into that presentation, obviously you want to know your content. Okay. And you've got to do the work. And if you haven't done the work, then there's an issue. But there comes a point where you go, look, I know my content. I know it as well as I'm going to know it in the moment right now. Sure, I could know it better, but here's where I am with my content. What's important now is I've got Danica in front of me, or I've got all of these people in front of me now. And what I need to focus on now is the connection. So more of my mind now goes towards how can I monitor this person? How can I make, read my own assumptions about them? How can I turn that into more questions for them so I can get closer to the truth about what's happening for them right now, and me get more aligned to that? Because if I do, we'll get more connection. If we get more connection, you're more likely to like my content and buy into my content, product, service, leadership, whatever that might be.
Absolutely. That is such a beautiful, beautiful anecdote. Always connection over content. I think that is something I am definitely going to take away from this. Well, let's move on to our second theme, because I think this kind of pivots well into this, which is we've talked about the big picture, the big connections, right? The scan system, but there's another big element here, which is the all-important micro expressions. And I am really fascinated to hear more about this, especially now also in this world of Zoom, where we might not even see people's full bodies anymore. But first, let's take a look at a clip from the video book about micro expressions.
So microexpressions are basically emotions that people feel inside that spill out very quickly in facial gestures or body movements. And they're super useful to tell us about what somebody is feeling. Are they crossed brows? Are their eyes narrowed? Are they looking tight in their face? Are their lips tight? Are there any signals or gestures of suppressing their behavior? Like, are they tight-lipped and trying to suppress their anger, trying to suppress getting really upset with us in the time? It's very difficult to decide how somebody is feeling by looking at just one microgesture, microexpression. It's useful to look at a cluster of them.
I was like, I was so into her at the end that I was like, well, keep going. I forgot it was ending.
Yeah. By the way, one of the things we loved about the video book is just I'm going to just say this for a second, the actors in it are so good. The direction of it is so spot on and fantastic. And I do hope, that they know what an incredible job they did. They really are fantastic. We were both so like, wow, when we saw them. So yeah, sorry, just wanted to interject.
Thank you. No, we appreciate that. And obviously, I think this type of book, I don't blame you for immediately going, we can't write a book. What do you mean? How can we put this on paper? The whole point of it is to communicate with our body language. And so what a thrilling process for it to have come to this point. And so back to micro expressions, obviously, yes, an incredible performance there, but just from a general level, when we're talking about leadership, communication, team, why is understanding microexpressions so important for being a good leader?
So look, often people are trying to suppress the feelings that they have and not show you for all kinds of reasons that you can easily come up with. They don't want you to see what's really going on behind the scenes of what they're projecting to you, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for nefarious reasons, okay, and anything in between. But it just so happens that what science has noticed is people often leak their feelings that are happening, but it happens very, very fast. Now, often we'll pick this up as a feeling that we have about that other person. Now, feelings are useful in the right places, but it can take you down the wrong alley in the wrong places. So what you've got to be doing is thinking, what micro expressions might I be picking up? Can I observe closely enough to catch them in that moment? And can I ask questions, or can I behave in a way to test whether that person is actually underneath all of this feeling the feeling that I now am, scientifically proposing that they might be feeling. So, for example, if we're in a conversation right now and I catch what I think might be a micro expression of disgust from you, which would be a very quick, often flaring of the nostrils, like a bad smell. Yeah, you were kind of looking off, and
I was like, I don't know if I can flare my nostrils, Mark. I didn't prepare that.
you might do that. You might do that to stop me seeing that. Knowing that you're feeling disgust about something, you might look off. So I might only catch one flaring of the nostril there. Okay, yeah, you just did it there, but you sustained it. Sometimes it's just quicker. So now I've got to go, okay, is Danica, does she have some distaste about something that I've said? Now, does she? I don't know. I mean, that's my theory. So now I've got to come back to you and go, hey, Danica, just feedback for me. Is there, are you good with everything that I've said so far? Or is there something that is, anything that is disagreeable to you at the moment? Now, of course, you could lie, of course, but now I'm looking out for other micro expressions. Sure. And you gave me the expression of, yeah, I might lie. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? Well, I'm going to be looking out for all kinds of other things that you do and go, okay, let's test how true that is. That for me is why those micro expressions are so important.
Well, and then you can make that new judgment, because if the judgment is, I think this person's lying to me, and maybe that's not a person I want in my corner. Maybe I don't want to work with that person if they're not going to be honest. Maybe I don't want to work with this team member if they're not going to, lead with their authenticity of me giving them the opportunity to speak up and them dismissing it or shoving me aside, right?
Exactly. The other thing is, Danica, is lying is one of our most important social skills. Okay, if you're not good at telling the lies and getting away with the lies that knit the fabric of society together, then you're not going to function very well. So sometimes I want to be able to go, actually, they told a pretty good and useful lie in that situation, which is keeping us the client at that point. I mean, nothing that is illegal, nothing is, but maybe they sit down with the client to lunch and there's a little, sniff of disgust because there's something on the plate they don't like as much as everything else. And the client, their instinct goes, hey, is everything okay? And they go, yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah. Because do they really want to go, actually, that specific sushi I have, a real aversion to. I mean, it's not that I hate it or I have an allergy. I just have a slight aversion that goes back. I mean, do we really want to get into that story?
And just to bring back the whole idea of what else are you, ask what else. So I'm just thinking the number of times that when the kids were quite small and I'd be in an important meeting and I'd have my phone here, but on, and see the phone light up with the school calling, for example, or, something that, it's like there's a pot boiling over here, but I really need to keep focused on the call. And there will be the moment of me, subtly looking down and my eyes probably going like this because I'm like, oh God, what is it? And then the person on the other side going, is everything okay? Oh, you know what? Absolutely. It's fine. It's nothing to worry about, because it's like, I'm trying not to let other things bleed into this moment, which is really important. And I do, of course, want to build trust, build my credibility with the person I'm trying to do business with and understand who they are and what they're about. But just sometimes things leak in, or we bring something. We've had, we've been unwell. I remember we were in an interview situation once where I was incredibly unwell, but there was no putting off the interview. It was booked. I couldn't not do it. And I really wasn't feeling well. And I, of course, didn't want to let this come through. And I was well enough to do it, but I was thinking, gosh, you know, some people who know me well might look and go, were you okay? You know, I was like, I was, but I was not very well. But you know, there's lots of different things that could cause you to leak out all these different emotions or feelings that aren't necessarily to do with that transaction you're doing right then, that social transaction you're having right then.
And so how does authenticity come into play with this? Because I think the one gray area that I always find is, if we're constantly aware, are we ever in the moment, right? And how can you know it and then let it go?
Yeah. Look, you know, one idea that comes to mind for me around that is people often say to us, hey, you know, it must be difficult for your kids, because how do they get away with lying? How do they, you know, and what I say is, look, it's very important for children to learn how to lie and to be able to get away with lying, because lying will save their lives. Maybe at some point, being able to tell a good and believable lie could save their life. And you must not deny your children the experience of being able to lie, get away with it, yeah, and know that they managed to project an idea of something that wasn't really happening at the time. Now, authentically, I could go, hey, I can understand that you're lying right now, and I'm going to call you out on it, and I'm not going to give you that moment to experience getting away with a lie. And in fact, the lie didn't matter. It was about nothing important, but I'm gonna hit you up on every one that you tell, just because, look, that's the authentic me. I have this skill and I have this ability, and why shouldn't I be able to play it? So look, what's authentic? What your feelings are, what seems true and important to you can actually get you pushed out of society, because you have to know when to lie, when to let somebody lie, when to tell the truth, and when to let somebody tell the truth as well. Okay, this is the fabric of our society. And again, that's what we want to get across in the book as well, is that lying and telling the truth are not good and bad things. They're just part of being human.
Yeah. And just thinking about authenticity and showing up in business, or showing up in a social situation, or in whatever situation, I think generally people want to bring the best of themselves, depending on, you know, like in a business meeting, let's say, if it's important, I want to bring the best of my content. I want to wear the best outfit. I want to make sure that my hair is done. I want to make sure my makeup's done. I might not authentically, I might be quite nervous, because of course, when you're in these situations, there's a lot of stressors. And so it's difficult. I think it's a difficult line with authenticity. Of course, I want to be authentic. I want to present my authentic work and the best of how I see myself, which is the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. So that is authentic. So maybe, you know, if I'm really authentic, I might want to be lying around at home watching Netflix, but I'm not right then. Or I might want to be, you know, eating lots of chocolate, but I'm not going to do that right then, because right then what's really important is that meeting that I'm there for. And so, yeah, so I think I don't know if this makes sense, but I think the authenticity, it depends on the context. Again, I always bring in context. Context is everything. So yeah, that's it.
I love it. I have very exciting news for you, which is we have a lot of Q&A questions.
Oh, okay.
People who want answers to things. So I think I'm going to jump into these.
Jump in.
So these are completely unprepared, folks.
Lovely.
Of the world. We have not seen these. These are brand new to Mark and Tracey. So from Camilla, how do you handle situations where you misread someone's body language?
Yeah, okay. Look, it depends on the outcome. So, you know, what does it matter? What does it really matter? If you misread it on something that has no real value to it, forget it, because it happens most of the time. Yeah. And you just don't know that it happened most of the time, because the value of the outcome, being right or wrong, didn't affect your life in any way. Okay. The key is when it's been misread, and the outcome of misreading is incredibly valuable. It's costing you a lot. Well, I think, look, what you do about that would really depend on the situation. Okay. So all I can really say is, like, you're misreading people's body language a lot. Most of the time, it didn't really matter. The key is to not get into the misread in the first place in situations that matter most. So use that scan technique in situations that are high value. Use your gut instinct or pay no attention in situations that are low value to you. That's what I'd say about that one.
That's great. Excellent. Wonderful. We also have an anonymous question.
Lovely.
Which I touched on a little bit, we didn't actually get into, so I'm excited about this, which is when it comes to the age of Zoom, how are we to be evaluating someone's body language and with that, telling the truth or lying? I mean, we're in an increasingly digital world where this is how people are connecting. And so you have any tips or tricks for the fact that right now, right, we can't see if you're slouching, sitting, I mean, we can see a little bit, but you know, there's so much in the video book that talks about height or proximity, and all of that is taken off the table. So do you have any tips or tricks for this digital world? And also, yeah, truth, lies, everything in between.
Yeah, I'll start this one. So not that I want to mention the P word, pandemic, but when the pandemic happened, of course, everyone switched to digital, to Zoom, and we did a lot of work with people on how to show up really well on this platform. And one of the things we told people is it's an amazingly intimate platform. Like, you know, you're in our home. We originally were in people's homes or closets, as it turned out for a lot of people when they first started, or in their kitchen with their kids or whatever it happened to be. But you're suddenly actually in a very intimate situation. So you can actually see quite a lot of the person and how they're interacting in that space. And actually, we would encourage people to bring some of the personal into it so that you get a quicker connection with people. But I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so one thing that I let people know that it's very difficult to see on Zoom, which is key, for example, business meetings, is what we call moderator gestures, which are the ones that let other people know that you want to join in, or I need you to stop, or, you know, somebody else needs to join in. So at the moment, for example, Danica, I can't see your hands right now. And if you were trying to indicate to me, hey, I want to jump in right now, if we were, yeah, you could use your eyebrows on it, which I might just mistake for you going, hey, I really recognize what you're saying, keep on going. It's not a classic moderator. The moderators tend to involve the feet or the hands kind of stepping into the situation or confronting the situation or just raising a finger on the situation. Okay, I can't see those. So here's what I tend to do in bigger virtual meetings is I go, look, I can't see all of your signals. So if you want to join in, if you've got a question, if you make a big signal for me, or just jump in and start talking in this meeting, it's not rude for you to interrupt me. And so by that, we start to increase the signals that we can see or hear audibly so people can connect better around that. There's lots that we can't see in the frame. You have to bring more into the frame to have good meetings.
I love that. Yeah, lead with it. Open the door for that. I absolutely love that. And from Anonymous, are there any body language cues that are perhaps cultural? How do we work with folks from different backgrounds and cultures, especially in this remote world where we might be working with people from all over the world? Yeah. And are there specific cues that are often misread or things to look out for so that we can be as collaborative and positive as possible in these interactions?
Well, I think that one of the things we generally talk about, sorry, now I'm aware that you're doing that, showing your hands. No, I'm going to show my hands. is that we have more in common than we don't. With everybody universally, we have more in common than we don't. And absolutely, there's different gestures from different cultures. We were recently somewhere where, you know, things like the AOK culture or the thumbs up culture in different, the thumbs up signal or the AOK signal in different cultures means something else. Sometimes something quite rude. So I think the thing is, if you're doing business with other cultures, just to be a little bit aware of, do your research. It might not always be true. You don't really know who you're meeting with, but it's safe to say just do your research. That would be my advice.
Yeah, look, one of the things you can do if you're in business, if you're managing, if you're leading, and you're going into what you think might be a culture you don't know everything about, is to find somebody who's in that culture, not somebody who's been there and visited, somebody who's actually in it, and the closer to the culture that you're actually talking to. So maybe actually you have a quick meeting with one of the people who's going to be in the meeting with you, and you say this, hey, so I don't know all the cultural signals, okay, so is there anything that I should absolutely steer clear of that you know of? So you ask them for some kind of instruction around that. And again, if you start to see stuff that for you is like, they're sending me a really strong signal of something positive or negative, I think, okay, just suspend your judgment and ask around that. Let me give you an example. I was at an Indian restaurant recently. I go to a lot of Indian restaurants. I like Indian food. Just so happened that the server, she was from India. She hadn't been born in Canada, where we are. She was from India. I made my order, and she said, that's a great choice. And she waggled her head like this, the head wobble. It's very common in India. It's not common at all in European and North American business culture. My instinct on it was, she actually thinks I've made a bad choice. She's going, maybe. Okay, but she'd said you made a good choice. But my instinct is, it's not so good. It's not so good a choice. So I had this gut instinct of, she thinks my choice is terrible, and she's just placating me. And in that moment, I had to go, suspend judgment. Hang on, I'm getting a really bad feeling about this, but this is just about an order in an Indian restaurant. Like, how bad could it possibly be? It's on the menu, okay? And then, because I'd suspended judgment, another part of my mind, the critical thinking part of my mind, came in, and it went, you know what? That was the head wobble. And it means something completely different. It means, okay. Yeah, good, okay. Yeah. So again, if I suspend judgment more when I get these gut instincts, okay, my critical thinking brain, the neocortex, gets a chance to go, here, have some cultural information that I've been storing up, which I wasn't able to give you because you had a strong gut reaction to this.
Yeah, like the suspend judgment is such an important moment, because it does take you out of that potential of cascading, of going down the wormhole of negativity around something, of making a judgment, going, oh, that's really bad, and then getting completely freaked out, and then, it changing your whole direction, or, making a decision based on that, which could be completely incorrect. Yeah. So that moment of suspending judgment and mindfulness, that's why we wrote the book, is just to try to help people to stay more in control of themselves in situations of any kind, of as many kinds as we could get down in this particular book.
Absolutely. Okay, final question from Dinazat. What is the difference in the body language of leaders and individuals? So I think, getting at how can we glance at someone and just know through their body language that we should trust this person as a leader. And also, I think, like we were saying, we have a lot of people in this room who might lead teams. So any final words of wisdom for us to be able to lead better in our teams and everyday lives?
Well, I think in the book, we talk about just having dominant body language, which a lot of leaders convey dominant body language, which is they're square on, their torso is very square on, they have good eye contact, they have good open gestures, open palms, showing no tools, no weapons, they're friendly, positive. So there's that element, absolutely, that I think a lot of good leaders display, is just those kind of open, friendly, straight on gestures with good eye contact.
No, I would say, does that mean you can trust them? No, because it could be a display. They've maybe trained with us. Yeah. So they're displaying that and they have something other underlying going on. Does it mean they're more likely to be liked as a leader before you've seen their leadership? Yes, absolutely. You're more likely to listen to them in a more positive way if they've got good, open body language, if they've got a friendly face, if they're taking up space but not your space, you know, if they're filling the frame of, say, the Zoom call but not, you know, taking up your space, you're more likely to like them. Here's one last thing I'd say about that, is that in order to be a leader, you need to be followable. And so it's not the best leader that takes charge, or the most moral one, or the one with the best ideas. It's the one that is most followable. So as a leader, you need to be clear and consistent with your nonverbal communication. Then you're followable. There are all kinds of great people out there who had great ideas and were brilliantly, intellectual or moral or saying the right thing, but they weren't clear and consistent, and nobody followed them. And so history doesn't have anything about them in the history books. And sometimes the history books are full of people who, you know, did stupid stuff, did the wrong thing, led everybody down the wrong path, but they were utterly followable, and therefore they got a lot of followers. So as a leader yourself, make sure you're followable, first of all.
I love that. Let's take that with us. Mark Tracey, thank you so much. That was such an insightful talk. And I'm so hopeful that all of our wonderful Lit All Access subscribers got so much out of that. I know I did. Let's be followable. Let's connect over the content, and let's always use the scan system to be able to better our lives. So thank you again for doing this. Thank you to all of those who are attending. We will be following up with a survey. We always want your feedback because we're just trying to make these as great as they possibly can be. And we will also be sharing a recording of this entire chat. So if there is anything you want to rewatch or share with your team, there will be key moments that you can go back and revisit in the future. And as a final teaser, we are very, very excited to announce that our next Fireside chat will be with Kim Scott of Radical Candor. So for those who are All Access subscribers, please check your emails, find out how to RSVP. That will be coming to you in a couple of weeks. So thank you again. Thank you, Mark Tracey. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week and end of your summer. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye.